So 2 years ago, my family and I were walking downtown in our town, which is Nyack, New York, a suburb of New York City. And I stopped and noticed a peach tree languishing by the sidewalk. All of the branches were heavy with all of this fruit drooping down right within reach of anybody walking past. But all of the food was spoiled. It was just dropping to the ground. Nobody was picking it. It was rotting beneath our feet. And that's because even though the food was in reach of anybody walking past, it was untouchable because there was a fence all around the trunk of the peach tree that indicated that somebody else owns this food. Nobody else can have it. And I stopped and thought about how many people actually walk past this peach tree on their way to the many soup kitchens that we have downtown. Almost 200 people walk past a peach tree, a source of good, healthy food growing in local soil, as they make their way down to the soup kitchen where they need good food. And I thought there's something wrong with this. We have a problem of food insecurity. We have hungry people, people who need good food, and they're so close to the source of their food, yet there's still a disconnection. They can't get to that good food in their own neighborhoods. So I looked beyond the peach tree, and for the first time I really noticed all of these front yards were so empty. They're beautifully manicured little yards right against the sidewalk, and I briefly envisioned those yards full of more fruit trees and vegetable gardens pushing food up within reach of the sidewalk so that anybody who needs food at any time could just stop and pick it. And I considered what it would take to make that happen. And a year later, I stood by that same peach tree and looked down at those once empty yards, and they were full of those vegetable gardens that I had envisioned. And that's because in 2015, Nyack, New York became the first edible town in the state of New York. My organization, Please Pick Project, came into existence in 2015 with the mission to give everybody in our community free access to good organic food by weaving it into our suburban and urban landscape. Good food, as we all know, is vital to everybody's health, but it's economically and logistically impossible for so many people in my community and across this country to access it. Financial barriers are really the most daunting. There are millions of people in America who go without good food because they can't afford it. And even if you can afford good food, even if you find yourself frequently shopping in the organic section in the grocery store or making organic choices from a menu, if you live in an urban or suburban region, you still struggle with food insecurity because you're cut off from the origins of your food. If you get beets on a plate, you don't know where those beets came from. No one can promise you that they grew in healthy soil. If you see organic stickers, what does that mean? If you don't know where the food really came from, you don't know what that food is. Unless you rip a carrot from the earth, you don't know that carrot. The carrot can sweetly whisper everything that you want to hear about its organic upbringing, and it can put on a fancy sticker. But the fact is, that carrot could be lying its face off, and we don't know the difference. We're out of control of our food. And so, Please Pick Project exists to help us become both producers and consumers of our food on the local level with small-scale agriculture. So I proposed this idea to my community. I said, well, let's create a food forest all around us. We'll plant fruit trees along the sidewalk. We'll plant vegetable gardens along the sidewalk. We'll find empty patches of land. We'll put in gardens or berry bushes, anything that people can eat. And soon we'll be enveloped by good food as we walk around town. Anybody that needs good food can just pick it for free. So the next step is actually doing it. And I planted a front yard garden in my yard, and I decided to just share the idea with the local high school, Nyack High School, and they turned around and actually wrote a grant to the state to be able to grow all of the seedlings for this project. So suddenly I was now equipped with thousands of seedlings to offer people in my town who wanted to participate in this project. So we gave out seedlings, and Nyack Center, the local community center, offered their backyard to be a central public space where we can make public gardens for anybody who wants to participate in the project who doesn't have a patch of their own private land to work with. And so it seemed like this idea was really off and running. I spread it on social media. People rallied around the idea, and why wouldn't they? Who wouldn't want to be part of an edible town where we can reclaim our health by taking to the soil and feed our community good food that we all need? But it wasn't going to be that easy. With every measure of support that I faced in the beginning, I also faced resistance. It's a different idea. It's kind of a radical idea. We're accustomed to gardening a certain way. We're accustomed to building fences around our gardens. We're accustomed to buying our food. We're accustomed to looking at food as our property, as something that we have a right to, that nobody else does have a right to, if they haven't bought into it like we did. So the idea here is to break down those barriers and to make food everybody's. Because if we all share this food insecurity, we all share the solution. We come together as a community. We share the soil. We share the earth. Let's build this thing together. And it's not the easiest idea to get out at first. So people liked it, but they were scared of it. And people said, well, is it clean? Can you pick food directly from the soil? Does the soil make it dirty? And I said, no, the soil makes it real. And so people were concerned that there would be bugs on their food. And I said, I hope that there are bugs on your food. That means that the food's healthy. That means that the soil's healthy. And then the biggest question is, well, what if everybody comes and picks the food out of my garden? And the answer is, I hope that they do. And we, as an edible village, have to give ourselves over to that idea that we're not just growing food for ourselves. This food is sending a ripple through our entire community. If a kid walking home from school can pick something healthy on his way home from school and makes healthier choices for the rest of that day, and kids growing up in the house across the street from you are exposed to more fruits and vegetables and incorporate more of them into their diet and end up becoming healthier people, then maybe you're not taking home the cucumbers and squash that you would like to take home from your gardening efforts, but you're taking home something much bigger, and that's a healthier community. And then the last piece of resistance was the fear that this food and this idea would bring vandalism to people's houses. If you're growing food in your front yard, will people come and rip the food out of your front yard? Will they come into your house and want to take more than your food? Well, thanks. I know, it does sound kind of silly. Then the next question is, well, will animals come to these gardens? And the answer to some is, well, maybe, but there are organic ways to deter animals. But some people thought that deer would come to the center of town, and closely on their heels, they'd be followed by coyotes. And then the coyotes would be followed by wolves, and there would be carnage in the streets, and people were scared. People thought that this was really going to rip apart our ordered little suburban town. And so I said, all right, well, I mean, you never know what the outcome is going to be unless you do it. So I've got to do this thing. And so I proceeded cautiously. And so we grew the food. And we grew a couple thousand pounds of it. And people ate it. And people were healthier. And it worked. We didn't get coyotes in the center of town. Not a single garden was vandalized. Instead, people came together over these shared gardens. Strangers met each other, shared compost, shared vegetables, shared recipes, shared stories about their lives gardening as young children in different parts of the world. And they were heartened that this is happening now in a town that they call home here in New York, where they never would have expected there to be these community gardens like this. I think that when you bring nature back into your suburban or urban space, you end up really connecting with each other on a more profound level, because you're sharing this earth and you're sharing the bounty, and a lot of differences kind of dissolve and we really just come together. So we grew about 2,500 pounds of food, and we started workshops for all of the kids that wanted to work in the gardens. And so kids were excited about lettuce. Kids were excited about radishes. My son would run from the room if I presented a radish to him on a plate. But if I give him a packet of seeds and he sows those radishes and rips them from the earth, he will eat the entire bunch, soil and all, before we even leave the garden. And it makes a cultural change to create an edible town. When good food grows where we live, work, and play, then that's the kind of food that we eat. access means everything. So giving ourselves and our neighbors this better food access changes everything. And it just takes a few seeds and some soil and some love, and we can create these edible towns across the country, especially as we lose more farm space. We're losing more than 40 acres of farmland in this country every hour, but we gain front yard space with all of that farm space that we lose. We have more than 50,000 square miles of yard space around this country. If we use just 10% of that to grow good food for ourselves and for our communities, then we can grow a solution to the food insecurity that plagues us all in this country. That's it. Thank you. Thank you.